Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be reviewing this album. It is Who Are You by The Who. So yeah, this album review was requested by a user called Charlie Hilton. So yeah, thank you for requesting this album review. I'll just do like the usual thing today. We'll go over a bit of background information about the album, then I will show you my vinyl copy of it and then go over each of the album songs. Okay, so this was The Who's 8th studio album, released on the 18th of August in 1978. Their previous album was in 1975, The Who by Numbers, and after that album, the band members went on to do solo projects, Roger Daltrey had an album called, I think it was One for the Boys. Pete Townsend worked with ex-Small Faces member Ronnie Lane, an album together called Rough Mix. So yeah, when we get to this album, it was recorded and released at the height of punk music and new wave, and rather than do music in that style, which The Who had been a major influence on on a lot of young bands at the time, especially in the earlier 60s material. However, on here they went for a more kind of symphonic rock sound, a lot more progressive, lots of layers, different sort of a more sophisticated sound overall. Apparently, recording this album was very, very difficult for the band, because they had drifted apart during their 3-year hiatus. Furthermore, Keith Moon's health had
deteriorated to the point where he was unable to get the drum tracks down on certain songs. He really struggled. Also Roger Daltrey went for some throat surgery as well around this time, and Pete Townsend had broken his hand after an argument with someone. So yeah, they weren't in the best of shape at this point in time, going into recording this album. However, when it was released, it done quite well. It reached number 2 in the US charts and number 6 over here in the UK. This album though will forever be associated with Keith Moon's death, because he died only 3 weeks after this was released. Okay, so I'm now going to go over my vinyl copy of it here. Pretty basic packaging to this, it has to be said. You've basically just got the front cover there, which is quite a nice image of the band, one of the more iconic images. The very famous seat there, with Keith Moon sitting on not to be taken away on it, and then the back cover here, just music equipment music amplifiers and whatnot. The actual record is just in a plain generic sleeve, and we are on the red Polydor Records label for this release. Okay, so I'm now going to go over each of the album's songs. I will score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. Okay, so it starts off with a song called New Song, which I do quite like this one. It is quite upbeat, gets the album off to a rockin' start. Lyrically, it's quite interesting, about radio stations and and music executives sort of demanding bands to produce clones off their songs, to have to ensure continued continued success and money as well, just to sort of repeat themselves. The actual production of the song itself is very layers, a little bit cluttered. The synthesizers in it are a little bit annoying, and the actual playing of the band it seems a little bit lackluster. It doesn't really have much passion, but I do actually like the song itself, the structure of the song, the lyrical theme and that. I think it works quite well. Okay, so moving on to track 2, it is a song called Had Enough, which is one of the 3 John Entwistle numbers on this album. Quite a lot for him for just one Who album, and apparently his 3 contributions were taken from a rock opera what he was writing, but he never got around to finishing it. And like again, this track, like it sounds very similar like to the last one, like lots of like synthesizers on it. For me, this kind of sound like it reminds me like quite a bit like of like 80s Genesis stuff like from like the Duke album. So the Who like a little bit like ahead of them like in terms of like the chronology like off it. Like the actual song itself like is alright, like it has like some like nice harmony vocals on it, like however like it is like an average song, like quite forgettable.
Every sentence in my head, someone else.
Another Entwistle track follows that called 905, which I don't really like this one personally. Like it's got like a interesting like electronic-y like introduction. It sounds very very similar though to like the earlier song Relay from 1973, which is a much better song. Keith Moon's drumming like on this track like it is like a little bit stiff. However, I do quite like the chorus, but like on the whole like it is like just an average song for me.
Goodbye, Sister Disco. And to your clubs and your...
That's followed up by a song called Sister Disco, which I do quite like this one, it has to be said. Like it's got like these sort of like these string like synthesizers like on like the song, which I think like work like quite well. Like apparently like they took like ages like to program like for Pete Townsend. Lyrically like it's sort of like a comment like on like disco music, like the Who like weren't like fans of this, so like it's sort of like about that. Like however like for me like I don't personally care like for like the middle section. Like Pete Townsend sings like the middle bit, like it just loses like all like the energy like what like the verses and like the chorus have. So overall a good track, just a little bit flawed in places.
The music must change for which you wake up on.
And now closing side one, we get a song called Music Must Change, which I do quite like the way this one sort of builds up. It starts very bare and then like throughout the song like these other like synthesizers come in, like Dolce's vocal like gets like a lot more louder, like a lot more like intense. However, this track suffers because it does stay very flat. Like yeah, like his like voice like gets like a bit like more powerful. But with this song, there's actually no drums in it, like at all. Like Keith Moon, like couldn't play this song, so like rather than get like someone else in, like to do it, like they just left it like without like any drums, so like it lacks like any sort of like beat, like or like any like cohesion. So yeah, a slightly like weaker track there to close side one. And then side two, unfortunately, that doesn't start much better with a song called The Trick of the Light, which is one of the more popular songs like, from the album. This song made the Who Hits 50 compilation because this was one of the singles, like I think like the second single from the album. However, it failed to chart, like it was a flop single. For me, basically because it isn't a very good song. Like it's quite a heavy song, lots of like guitars, like and like a really sort of like rumbling like bass like from John Entwistle. But for me, it's boring. Like it's too slow. Like the tempo for this song, and like also like Roger Daltrey, like he sings this song, but like he said, like he doesn't like singing it. Like he feels like it goes on for too long. Like he doesn't like care like about this song. Like and like you can sort of tell like his vocal performance like it is like a little bit like half-hearted. So yeah, not a great track there. Trick of the Light would get a 6 out of 10. And then following that up, we get a song called Guitar and Pen, which is a song which was recycled from the Lifehouse project, which of course like later became like the Who's next album. And this is a song that basically like about songwriting, like having like a guitar, like and like a pen, like to rely on. It is more like upbeat than like Trick of the Light. Like it's got like a bit more like of like a faster like pace to it. Like however like it's got like these very sort of like for me like horrible sort of like theatrical like backing vocals on it, like and like musicality to it. Like it sounds very sort of grand, like very pompous song. Dolce's vocal like as well, like it sounds like at this point like it sounds like a bit like annoying like for me like as well. It is a song which drags on far too long, like it's about 6 minutes. Just yeah, not a very good song. A 5 out of 10 for me. And then the penultimate song is called Love Is Coming Down, which I think like is like quite better than like the first two songs. Like, I decided to like it's like a softer ballad, like where like the string synthesizer, they do like actually like add quite a lot to this song. Like, I think Dolce sings it like rather well, but for me, like in terms like of theme, like and like musical style, like it is basically just like a rewrite of Love Rain Over Me from Quadrophenia. So yeah, like that does like mark it down like a little bit. So yeah, like not a good song here, just not great. And then we close the album with The Who's, with like one of like The Who's like most popular songs, the title track to the album, Who Are You, which is like a good track to close on. Like, however, for me personally, it's never been like one of my favourite like Who songs. Like, never been like a go-to track for me. Like I would give this track an 8 out of 10 personally. Like, I do quite like the sound like on this track. Like, this is like where like they've got a good balance like of like synthesizers and like guitars, like and like great playing. Like, again, Dolce sings it quite well. The chorus though, for me, like it is good like one or two times, like however, like it does get like a little bit like annoying like on like the full like 6-minute album version here. Like, goes on like a bit too long. Like, there's like a verse like too long personally. Although I would say it does certainly work like better like at the end like of like this album like than it does say like on like a greatest hits like compilation. For me personally, like anyway, like I think like it does a good job of like rounding off this album. Okay, so overall, I would give this album a score of 68%. For me, I would say like the good things about it are there are some pretty good solid rocking tracks such as New Song, Sister Disco, like and like the title cut like as well. But like throughout this record, like it does sound quite a stiff album. A lot of the tracks like were like layered up and like not played live in the studio, which is really like when like the Who like were at their best, which was like on the stage. Like, it's quite like an odd album like as well for them, like coming like after like a lot more like acoustic, like more kind of country like influence the Who by numbers. This is going in like a more like symphonic rock, like sort of like almost classical like influences, like with like a heavy like synthesizer like prominence. But yeah, for me, a very sort of average album. Like, there's nothing absolutely awful like on here, but like then again, like it never reaches the heights like of like Who's Next, like a Quadrophenia, like or Tommy for me personally. So yeah, that's us come to the end of this album review. Like, I hope you have all enjoyed it. Like, I would be interested to know what you think of this album like down below, like in like the comment section. And I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.